make a regular baseball fly faster, you have to throw it harder. You have to add energy.
But there's a hypothetical particle that goes beyond the speed of light. It's called a tachyon. And to make it slow down, you have to pump energy into it. But if it loses energy, it speeds up. And if the energy drops to absolute zero, the speed becomes infinite. It can be everywhere at once. It looks completely still, but in fact, it is all powerful.
Your soul is that particle, and the weight of your mental, emotional, and physical burdens are what is slowing you down. Today, we're going to show you how to drop the weight, pull back the veil, and change your relationship with time forever. Welcome to Becoming You, the Path to Consciousness, where we apply spiritual wisdom and truth to your everyday life. And we're so glad you're here. I'm Terry Hasty.
And I'm Haydn Hasty, and thank you so much for joining us as we truly try to share what we've learned about living a conscious life and how to see everything in a much more powerful and truthful way.
In the last couple of episodes, we talked about the horizontal and vertical worlds in which we simultaneously live. And today we're going to move into a dynamic of both worlds that we all deal with, and that's the dynamic of time. Time captivates, even controls us. It flies, it crawls. There's never enough of it. We're afraid of running out of time. Occasionally we ask, is this how I should be spending my time? And then we rush off to the next thing. But rarely do we ask the foundational question of what is time? Well, there's a horizontal answer, which we all know that one, the clock and so forth, and there's a vertical one. And here's the vertical answer. Time is the understanding of the movement of the eternal in your physical life. Time is the process of evolution unfolding.
For the individual, time truly is. It is a tool of the soul to engage in the process of evolution, of the unfolding of life. The soul, you have to remember, only evolves here in the physical world. It doesn't continue to evolve after death. Instead, death is really, it's a consolidation, it's a reconciliation of what has been learned or failed to have been learned while you were alive. Look at the world today. It's glaringly obvious how unevolved we are collectively. I mean, it's 2026. And that's why, if you're an individual who is at least woken up enough to ask, why am I here? You must act on that curiosity. You need to learn to consciously construct your life around that purpose, whatever it is that comes up for you. And to do that, you have to completely change your understanding of time.
And that question, why are we here? I love that you said, if I'm even curious about it, I have to take the next step or I'll be haunted by it. I mean, the ultimate purpose of life is to become a living manifestation of the vertical essence, the spiritual essence that created us. And that essence is consciousness. It's built into every single molecule of your body. It's the truth of who you are, moving through time to wake up to itself. And evolution is simply that process. But realization is the moment that you actually embodied that truth in your life, in the physical world, in the here and now. So this won't really resonate with pure materialists or even atheists, but it also won't make sense to people who believe the physical world is just an illusion or a mistake. And if you think the goal of life is just to bide your time until you reach some non-physical heaven, then you've completely missed the miracle and the meaning and the privilege of birth.
The current decline in the United States is a clear example of this process, a process that anyone can see is accelerating and moving through these stages of ignorance and destruction toward its intended goal of creation, of spiritualizing 1 inch at a time the physical world. These are the rules, and you don't get to change them. However, you are free to express your understanding or the lack thereof in any way you choose. But if you choose to drive the wrong way on a one-way street, you know what the consequences are going to be.
Now, here's the essence of our problem as human beings, the answers that each of us seeks to reveal the meaning and to discover the purpose of our life in a physical body won't be found, cannot be found in the physical. It can only be found in the metaphysical, in consciousness. And as it turns out, it's not even about knowing. As we all know, you can be a PhD and still be an idiot. You can be the richest person in the world and be consumed with greed and selfishness. You can be extremely accomplished and feel empty. So it's not about the outer, it's about seeing beyond the senses, really seeing beyond what your eyes can see, beyond how the mind interprets what the eyes see.
Well, to give you some context on where we're coming from, both Terry and I have spent decades studying human behavior through traditional lenses. My background includes a BA and a master's degree in French, an advanced degree specializing in curriculum and learning styles. It's called an educational specialist degree, and a PhD in psychology. And Terry's background is in English, and she has a master's degree in human resource development. Well, I'm not sharing this to brag about anything. We've already established that you can be well educated and be an idiot. But to make a point, very little of that institutional knowledge prepares you for the real work of awakening, because the truth that we've come to realize in our work together is that consciousness is not a byproduct of cognitive ability. Now, we're going to come back to that a little bit later, but intellect and spiritual awakening are two completely different things. And that's what we're going to dive into in this discussion by looking at this issue of time.
And the more conscious you become, the more you see behind the veil. That's how you step up and actively participate in your own evolutionary process. It allows you to live an extraordinary life. And this doesn't mean that your life will be free of pain or of difficulty, but it means your difficulties will finally make sense. They serve a purpose, but here's the secret. Once a difficulty succeeds, in helping you see beyond it, you don't need it anymore. You stop repeating the same painful patterns, and you can choose to grow through conscious expansion instead of suffering. So, even though the world right now appears to be in a never ending cycle of decline and destruction, it's so important to remember that time is a tool of the soul. In fact, time and the evolutionary process are the exact same thing. Your life is both a promise and a prison, and time is the process by which you find the key to get out of prison and unlock the doorway to the promise.
Well, consider the work of a guy's name was Itzhak Bentov. He was an inventor and a mechanical engineer, but he was also considered to be a mystic. And in 1977, he published a book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum: The Mechanics of Consciousness. And in it, it was absolutely amazing. He included these hand drawn models showing exactly how a human being can break through the heavy lid of ordinary mental consciousness of everyday life simply by learning to be still. It was not very popular at the time it was published, but it became a massive underground cult classic, and it's still in print today.
Mm.
Tragically, just 2 years after the book was published, he was only 55 years old. Bentov was killed in that infamous American Airlines crash that was leaving Chicago for Los Angeles. And he was on his way to Los Angeles to present some of his work to a delegation of Japanese scientists who had taken a fancy to his writings.
And I know, Hayden, all the times that you would, replicate his hand drawings on the whiteboard in our leadership workshops, and people would be interested, but kinda look at it like, "What in the world?" It's because we didn't have this connecting information yet of what the consciousness truly is that we could share with like we're sharing now or attempting to.
Well, he had this specific drawing that I just thought was one of the most fascinating things that I've ever seen. To explain it, he uses the mechanics of a hypothetical particle that's called a tachyon. Now, I'm not going to try and give a physics lesson here and pretend that I'm any kind of a scientist, but a tachyon is a particle that essentially exists on the other side of the speed of light. The core idea is that by moving faster than light, you transcend linear limits and can access higher realms of existence. Now, people have achieved this state for millennia through meditation, breath work, and deep spiritual practice. And I'm one of those people, but it took me many years of dedicated meditation work. And when it did happen, the experience completely changed the direction of my life. I realized there was so much more to our existence and we can currently see or remotely comprehend. There is so much more.
Mm.
You see, when a particle moves at infinite speed, it can be in multiple places at the exact same time. Think of an airplane, a propeller. When it spins fast enough when you're looking at it, the blades seem to kind of blur together until it looks almost like it's sitting completely still. And so being everywhere at once, or even being in several places at the exact same time, is called omnipresence. Now, knowing everything that is happening in those places, which you would be able to do, which you would be able to know if you were in those places, is called omniscience. And having that kind of infinite reach and power is called omnipotence. So if you are omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, what is that called? Well, we all know, we have an idea of this. It is called God.
Mm.
As Terry said, I've shown this drawing to hundreds of people over the years, and I always ask him this question. If the particle is moving so fast that it's in Asheville, North Carolina, but can also be anywhere else, then where is it? And people will say Hong Kong, Sydney, Los Angeles, everywhere. But then I ask the most important question of all, which is this. Assume that the object that you're looking up in the sky is a tachyon. What is it doing? And the answer is always the same. People get this. They say nothing. It looks like it's sitting perfectly still. And there is the secret to time.
The secret to time is doing nothing?
No. Well, first, let me say this. There's no such thing as nothing. And second, it's important to learn to equate consciousness with force.
Mm.
They are synonymous, and the mind can't get that. It thinks it has to be doing stuff. In the famous book, A Course in Miracles, the voice that the author, her name was Helen Shugman, the voice that she channels who identified himself in this work as the Christ, he said, it's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. And he also said in A Course in Miracles, and this is a quote, he said, why is it strange to you that faith can move mountains? This is indeed a little feat for such a power. It's amazing.
And also the, movie, it's made on Dan Millman's book called The Peaceful Warrior, but the movie's The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and in it, Dan's mentor, who he nicknames Socrates, tells him in one of their lessons he's missing everything that's going on around him, and Dan replies, "Well, there's nothing going on." And Socrates says, "There's never nothing going on." But I think the question in that, sense with the movie is, and also in our own lives, can we see what is really going on?
We haven't learned to truly see. But of course, we also have to acknowledge that learning to be still is in order to create a field of intention and calm and very importantly of receptivity of being open. It takes practice and it can take time.
The reason that I think Bentov is such an incredible resource for understanding time, is really kind of simple. I mean, he forces us to challenge our linear perspective of time. When you move toward a spiritual, nonlinear understanding of time, then you open the doorway to what Bentov calls the omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. But when we're just trying to look at how space and time are on the graph together, I think that's more complicated than the tachyon. And this is the very essence of a supramental, conscious human being. What we're trying to do in our work is to help you realize that there is another reality available, and it's not something existing outside of you. It is you, the truth you seek, the happiness that you are seeking. It's you. You're the one that you've been looking for. It's not out there. And to understand how this shift works, we can look at it through the lens of physics. If you want a baseball to fly faster, you have to add energy. You have to throw it harder. The faster it goes, the more kinetic energy that it has. But with a tack on, this hypothetical particle, it operates in reverse. To make a tachyon slow down, you actually pump energy into it. And if a tachyon loses energy, it speeds up. And this kind of shift, because of this unique quirk, if a tachyon's energy level drops to absolute zero, its speed becomes infinite and it exists everywhere all at once. So think about how that applies to us in our everyday lives. We assume that the more weight we carry, the more energy we use, the more powerful we are. But as hard as you try, as much as you do, day after day, have you ever felt like you are enough? Have you ever given yourself that certificate that says you've made it? You are awesome. The more common experience is that we get bogged down by our mental, emotional, and physical burdens. And when we learn to uh, give up the burdens as a way to feel good enough, particularly the burden of measuring up, when you stop directing all your energy towards being good enough and drop your resistance down to zero, you stop sludging through linear time and you move into really this liberated experience of nonlinear time, and you finally realize your own infinite nature, your own tachyon within.
Even if it's just 1 inch out of a foot, each step is going to create that particular level of transformation that is mathematically proportional to that realization.
And we might as well consider it because what we've tried before, which is if I do enough, if I love enough, if I get early enough, if I stay up late enough,
It's
I'll
not
finally
working.
be enough. It's not working, so we might as well consider this other.
Well, look at our world today. Everywhere you look, everyone has their heads down, staring at their phones. Our focus is no longer on ourselves, it's trapped in an artificial world created by technology. Boy, if you want to talk about illusions, a world that helps us avoid coming to terms with who we
And
are.
not just helps us avoid, boy, it really facilitates it. It's if you just sit back and look, we just took a trip and we were in an airport, and everybody's walking through the airport with their head down. They're on the plane with their face in their phone. It's this, abdication of our own lives by focusing on whatever else we see on that little screen.
Well, it forces us to function from the outside in rather
Mhm,
than the inside out. All of our focus is out there. And this constant staring at the screen, so to speak, has radically disrupted in a lot of ways, and in some ways completely severed our ability to fulfill this ancient command from the beginning of time found in all of the most famous spiritual scriptures to know thyself. In other words, our going back to
mhm,
Bentov, our internal pendulum has been paralyzed by all this constant noise.
mhm.
So technology, I mean, it's true. There's a lot of value to it. It's made us masters of knowing stuff, fixing stuff, but
Yeah,
completely illiterate in knowing ourselves. We literally have traded the infinite availability of our own consciousness, or you could say our soul, our higher being, for a 6-inch glowing
wow.
rectangle.
Yep.
To truly know thyself in a smartphone world, the most radical thing you can do is put the phone down, sit in the silence, and let your inner pendulum begin to slow down. And this is vital. From my point of view, and having been a teacher for, I'd say probably about 21 years of my life, in the real classroom, not in business, but in public education, the engine, from my perspective, the engine behind any society's future lies in its primary educational system. That's where self development begins. Now, I want to be really clear. Consciousness itself isn't created by intellectual talent, but when a public educational system fails to teach critical thinking, it becomes incredibly difficult for a young person to look inward, reflect, and gain the skills they need to transcend their limitations and barriers that they face.
I think schools are catching on to that, though, Hayden. And when phones first came out, kids had to put their phones in a bucket at the front of the classroom. Then they said, wait, these can be instruments of learning. And now they're shifting back to saying we need their brains engaging more than just the screen.
Right, and look at
Yeah.
the damage that has taken place in the meantime. But to make things even worse, our modern world is trapped in, I think a lot of people are familiar with this now, but are trapped in what psychologists call, it was called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Essentially, when people lack self-awareness, they also lack the very tools required to recognize their own ignorance. In other words, and who hasn't been here before? So I'm not talking about other people. I'm also talking about myself. You don't know that you don't know. So when we are in that state of unconsciousness, we always default to bias and toxic patterns and just the same old mental stuff that we have in our minds that get
Mhm.
projected out there on the world because we literally cannot see our own flaws
It's
and
l-
limitations.
it's like Sri Aurobindo when he says, "How long are you going to stay in the circling tracks of your mind?"
Right.
And that's such a good reminder to me that the mind isn't really capable of becoming conscious. That's the work of the soul of consciousness.
Well, make no mistake about it, a person, and I want to be crystal clear about this, a person who's struggling with self awareness, that doesn't mean that they don't have access to consciousness. Everyone does because that is who you are. The difference is the toolkit that the individual goes about the business of becoming self aware and eventually spiritually awakened. So to truly navigate the inner world, it's really helpful to have psychological tools, the vocabulary, the mental space, the experiences of self-awareness in order to understand it. And right now, our phones and our systems are stripping those tools away from us. But again, to be crystal clear, They're not doing it to us, we are allowing it.
Right, and I'm not gonna get rid of my phone because it serves a really great function, but I do remind myself, "Look up," like the movie Look Up. It's the, opportunity to see what's going on, like Socrates said, you're missing everything that's going on around you, but also missing everything that's going on within us. So I think, Hayden, this is the perfect time to kinda anchor everything that we've just talked about, and if you don't get anything else from today's episode, then these kind of 4 truths, core truths will serve you for a long time to come. And one is the definition of time. It's different than what we think. It's not just the clock ticking. It's the movement of the eternal unfolding within the physical world. It's the literal mechanism of evolution in action.
Well, but you could say it's the movement of God in the physical world.
Well, and that's why, it is the soul's tool. For you as an individual, time is the ultimate tool that your soul uses to engage in the unfolding. So the more you understand how time actually works, the quicker you can transcend any barriers that you're dealing with, physical barriers, emotional barriers, and limitations that are holding you back in life. And that's why there's such an urgency now for us to increase our understanding of the purpose of time and of the work of the soul. And I'm at a point in my life, and I really have been for a while, which is I don't want to waste my time. And I also know that we are all born, we are here at this time in history, in human development for a real purpose. And we have an opportunity to really move not only ourselves, that's the most important part, but be part of the collective movement to being more conscious, to being more unified, to being able to see beyond just the everyday dramas and traumas of the individual life. And the ultimate purpose of that, at the end of the day, the entire goal of this evolutionary process is simple: to become a living, breathing manifestation of the divine, that which created it all, including you and including me.
There's still so much more to uncover when it comes to the mystery of time. In next week's episode, we're going to explore a powerful tool that really brings all of this into focus. It's called the Gnostic Circle. It probably is the greatest perspective that I've ever worked with in terms of time, and you don't want to miss it. But for right now, as you walk away from today's conversation, remember this: consciousness is the singular component of everything physical, including you. It's the truth of who you are working its way through time to wake up to itself, to experience itself in physical form. Evolution is the process by which it does that, and realization is the moment that you get it, that you
Mhm.
wake up and you begin the process of actively manifesting that truth in the physical world. And never forget the most important concept that we shared today, which is, I know this sounds weird, that you possess the qualities of that which is, as Bentov so accurately and clearly pointed out, those qualities that are omnipresent, omniscience, and omnipotence. Your soul is that very tachyon that Bentov described. Be still, transcend linear time, and know thyself. Better yet, become thyself. In doing so, you will finally know the world, consciousness, existence, and bliss. It's the essence of everything that you desire.
So there's a beautiful and ancient text called the Wahoo Ching, and it was written over 1,700 years ago, and it still applies to us today. And it perfectly captures the stillness that you were just talking about, Hayden, and that the tack on exemplifies. It says, "Who can be still and watch the chess game of the world? The foolish are always making impulsive moves, but wise ones know that victory and defeat are decided by something more subtle. They see that something perfect exists before any move is made. This subtle perfection deteriorates when artificial actions are taken, so be content not to disturb the peace. Remain quiet. Discover the harmony in your own being. Embrace it. If you can do this, you will gain everything, and the world will become healthy again. If you cannot, you will be lost in the shadows forever. And if you're ready to move from just hearing about this or even understanding this truth to actually encountering it in your own life, to find that part of you that has been elusive, but that is certainly there in each one of us, we hope that you'll come and practice with us. We're going to be at the Omega Institute, which is an absolutely beautiful retreat in Rhinebeck, New York, July 31st through August 2nd for an immersive weekend retreat. And it's time to go ahead and start making your summer plans. So visit truthspringasheville.com and you can register right there. You can find out more about it. You can certainly reach out to us with any questions. And while you're there, you can check out ways to engage with us virtually and also in person, including our Becoming You Journey monthly curriculum. That's such a wonderful resource and such a wonderful community. So drop us a line, find out how you can engage with us, and we would certainly love to see you at the Omega Institute.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Becoming You, the Path to Consciousness podcast. Put the phone face down, find the silence, and we'll see you next week.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.